So, yeah, a common question is, so once a product's tested and new vulnerabilities are identified, how do we keep up with the constantly moving threats? So one of the key things to recognize about the program is that we're doing a certification to standards. And so typically the certification will be about a year behind what the current state of the art is in hack attacks, if you will, or newly discovered vulnerabilities. So if you're an asset owner procuring product and the certification is, say, a year old, from a testing perspective, I would include in the procurement requirement to rerun either the vulnerability identification test and or some portions of the CRT test, depending on new vulnerabilities discovered. But from a vulnerability identification test perspective, the National Vulnerability Database tends to stay fairly current. And so, but yeah, if there's a delta between the time that the certification was issued and the procurement date, I would just ask for that additional, additional test. The other thing, so there's usually a question about maintenance of certification. If a product changes, does the product have to be completely retested and reassessed? The answer is typically no. When a product version changes, the supplier would submit a description of the changes to the lab who does the certification for them. And that lab's experts would evaluate what those changes are, and based on that, they would either go back and re-audit a development process step or do a retest. Maybe it might only be a vulnerability identification test. So based on the extent of the change will dictate the extent of retesting, if you will. The program's designed to look for ways to be economically efficient, and that's where the lab's judgment will come in and reduce, a full retest. So, by the way, this set of slides will be posted onto the website, as will the webinar itself. Okay. So there's a question about a company that's working to improve 14-year-old cyber governance with the 62443 subparts still not fully published. How long do you anticipate before the industry is demanding this in OEM products? So the certifications that we have are pretty closely aligned with the draft standards, and our commitment, we have two commitments. One is we donate our certification specifications to the standards committee, and they can use them as input, and they have in the past. But the other piece is that we know that the standards will change over time, and so we have to continually update our program to meet the changed standards. So today the 4-1 standard was voted on and approved. Comments are being processed, and we expect to see that published towards the third or fourth quarter of this year. And our commitment is to align our program with those standards as they're formally published. So I would say by Q1 of next year, the key standards 4.1 and 4.2 will be pretty stabilized. So we would have pretty close to 100% alignment on that. And when we issue certificates, we don't sunset old certificates. the certificates of conformance are event-driven, so when a supplier's product changes, they'll be reevaluated. Every few years, the certification requirements would change, and products that are submitted based on new certification requirements would need to meet those new certification requirements, but the old ones, the old certifications won't be sunsetted. Certificates clearly call out which version of the certification requirements the product has been certified to. So from a procurement perspective, you would be likely wanting to seek the most current version of the certification for your products. So security levels and zones and conduits, let's see, might be a bit at odds with risk assessment and proper countermeasures. So all devices in a specified security level have to meet manufacturer ISA secure ratings per that assigned level. So in other words, a process safety zone might have a different security requirement than an engineering zone. So yeah, they would be those zones would be assessed to their assigned security level. Let's see. So, there's a caller that's looking to determine if they should include a portion of the material in your procurement standards. So everything that we certify, all of our certification documents are all published on the website. You can include the ISA secure requirements in your procurement requirements. That's how they're intended to be used. We don't recommend doing line item vetoes or taking partial sections of it. It works best if you require, say, ISA Secure Level 1. Then you know you're getting a comprehensive product review. Quite frequently, companies will say to us, well, we're doing the World Tech Achilles certification, and we think that's great. We use World Tech Achilles in the certification scheme for ISA Secure, but it's about 25% of the total assessment process. So, you know, while we think it's good and necessary, and you know, they're a recognized tool, we think that it doesn't do the full assessment that's needed. So what types of software products would be applicable for SDLA? So for SDLA, SDLA has requirements that address system-level integration for a system level, and also component level, which would be like embedded devices. So yeah, it has requirements for both. So yeah, embedded software and system-level software.
Are you good with these two?
A number of suppliers use the same elements in their products, such as embedded operating systems, Ethernet stacks, other communication drivers. Any initiative to encourage suppliers of RTOs, Ethernet stacks to pursue ISA Secure. So today we're certifying embedded devices and systems. But with any IP addressable device that is included with the embedded devices or a system, such as switches and routers, they get tested as part of our network stress testing. devices, we're not issuing certificates for them. They're tested as a part of the whole for the system for looking for security vulnerabilities or weaknesses. But yeah, we talked with Cisco and some other suppliers and to actually certify and issue certificates on what we would call IT or IT infrastructure devices. That was a lower priority. It's within the scope of 62443. We're just not doing it yet. Somebody asked about how UL might be aligning with ISA Secure. That's a good question. I've spoken with UL about adopting the ISA Secure scheme. Their lab, like many others, and so that's a possibility, and we're just not far enough along yet. One of the things that I point out to the labs is that putting together the certification requirements is pretty thorny. It's a lot of work, and it doesn't make sense for every lab to have their own certification, set of certification requirements. And we don't compete with labs. We develop the requirements. Labs are participants in the process, and so labs issue certificates using their own brand. For instance, Exida would issue their own certificate, or an organization like TUV or UL would, and just have a small logo indicating that they're certifying to 62443 and using the ISA Secure requirements. But the key is to have all the labs using the same set of certification requirements that align to the standard. Then you won't, it'll create efficiencies. You won't have competing brands in the marketplace and headaches for suppliers. So SDLA asked for documents to be produced. Are there any templates available that specify what the contents of these documents should be? That's a more detailed question than I could answer here. I would have to look at which document you're asking for specifically. But if you actually engage with one of the labs like Exida, for instance, in their work processes, they would have such items like that. So we have some templates like sample reports for the EDSA and for SSA, but I don't believe we have templates for those particular documents just yet. So there's a question about how does this align with the White House Executive Order on Cybersecurity 13636. I'm not real sure about what that one is specifically. And I've seen the executive orders. They're pretty broad, but I'm just not sure. We have responded to the RFI for the NIST cybersecurity framework, both ISA through the 62443 Standards Committee and ISA Secure. We separately made a response to it indicating that not only are there standards, but there's a conformity assessment scheme for the standards. With regard to system level cert of SDLA, what types of software fall in the scope? Does it include all software in level 3 or only software that interacts directly with L2, such as DCS? So I'm going to apologize on that one. I don't have the expertise on level 2 versus level 3 about that. So, but just at the highest level, it would include any software that's not like straight out application software only. So, for instance, if a third party developed a data historian and that runs as a standalone application, that's a different certification. That's the application security assurance that we're working on. But yeah, any other software that's in the system, including third-party components. So the SDLA addresses third-party software, so the supplier has responsibility for that. And one of the things that we're seeing there is the reusable components that are used in systems. Suppliers are turning to their OEMs and their suppliers and saying, look, we've got this security requirement, and we're going to push that onto you. And so it is starting to push back into the supply chain. Yeah, so this is another good question we get a lot. So how does an installed external cybersecurity appliance like a configurable firewall or Tofino fall into the system cert? So if you're certifying, a lot of the products that are out there today, legacy products, don't have very good ability to protect themselves against cybersecurity attacks. So we've had, the supplier can use compensating controls like firewalls and Tofino devices. And we've had products that's been submitted for certification with such devices, and that's totally fair. When we issue the certificate of conformance, that particular configuration is called out. So when a product supplier submits, they submit the configuration, and if it included a Tofino device or other compensating control, that's clearly called out on the certificate that's issued. Looking for other questions. I think that's it on the questions. We're at about a minute away from the top of the hour. We'll see if any other questions come in, but you know, I'll just remind everyone we're going to post up this recorded version of the webinar and the slide deck onto the ISA Secure website, and that should be available by tomorrow. We can usually get it turned around pretty quick. So there is a question about when we expect the draft of the application security assurance to be available. Typically, we complete any new certifications. We have all the documents completed and ready to go before we announce an availability date. So I'd be afraid to tell you that today. We've made announcements in the past, and some of these certifications get pretty thorny and the timelines get extended. So unfortunately, I'll have to apologize on that one. All right. Well, great. I appreciate you taking out an hour of your time today and hearing about the program. We do like to see a broader stakeholder group participating. So it is a membership consortia. If you're an asset owner, it provides you the opportunity to ensure that any of your detailed requirements are included in the conformity assessment scheme. And you know, for suppliers, you can, by participating, you also can influence the fairness of the certifications and the cutoffs and the thresholds, and whether some aspect of the device is either audited as an internal process or whether it's actually tested from a third-party perspective. That tends to be a pretty important conversation. So, again, thank you for dialing in, and I'll go ahead and drop off and give you back your day.